1X Developer Podcast.
How did I say it? I wanted to introduce these in a new way. I don't think I ever did say.
Yeah, I don't think we ever landed on one.
We gotta. I don't know. I'm sick of the "Hi, I'm Colin," and I'm Brendan thing. I don't know.
We need a tag. That's what we were talking about. Is we need a name for the people who listen to our podcast, the 1Xers.
Yeah. We need like a. Maybe it only feels that way to us because we don't hear the intro music when we do this. Like everybody listening, they just heard that banger track and they're like, all right, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Maybe we just need to be like, you know who it is. We're back.
you know what time it is. That'd be exciting. Speaking of exciting, we're going to talk about exciting software versus boring software and mature software versus immature software. And I don't know, what are the pros and cons of each? How do we weigh these when we're building things? And all that stuff.
Yeah. So this is something I've kind of been thinking about for a little bit. I just feel like sometimes I get sick of this constant churn that we have in the software world where it's like you have this constant hype cycle, right? I think we've talked about that on the show before. This cycle of like, there's some new framework and everyone loves the new framework until 3 years from now. And now nobody likes the new framework. It's not the cool new thing anymore. And that can get a little tedious, but at the same time, I don't think that's entirely unhealthy. I think it's a good thing that people are like trying new ideas and making new exciting software. But I think for those of us who are doing the programming, there's this real question of like, what do we want our stack to look like? What's that mixture of exciting and boring software? Because I think you want some kind of mix in there. You don't want everything to be exciting because you don't want to be like the first mover. You don't want to be adopting everything that's brand new and is full of bugs, right?
Yeah. No way.
But at the same time, you don't want to be adopting software that's dried up and is not going to have any improvements.
So first thing that comes to mind is like, what are some examples of like some truly evergreen like things that have been there forever and will always be there? You know, things that come to mind are like the C programming language, right? It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And it's what, like more than 40 years old, right?
I think 70s.
Yeah.
Some of these databases have got to be. I don't think MySQL is quite that old, but like, I mean, that's been around and stable since the late 90s, right?
Initial release 1995.
The SQL language itself, but yeah, some of the like Oracle and stuff like that. These databases have been around for decades.
One thing that always kind of blows my mind is that AutoCAD has been around since 1982.
Really?
Yeah. If I remember right, I think the original version didn't even have like a graphical interface, or at least it didn't have like mouse support, is what I'm thinking of. Everything was like just like terminal commands to do.
Man, that sounds tedious as hell.
It's very old. Yeah. Because I remember my AutoCAD teacher talking about how like at some point in time when he started, you would have to like print the drawing on a giant like printer that's like 5 feet across or whatever, and you'd have to print and then see that you messed up, and then have to print again and like waste all this money, and it was like a big deal if your drawing wasn't right the first time.
God, that sounds brutal. That sounds terrible.
So that does happen. You've got things like Linux, right? I mean,
yeah,
things that are kind of here to stay. But I think that's probably the biggest thing when I look at like something that's old. What sometimes scares me is I think like, is this thing over the hill? You know, Like if my project lives for 10 years, is this even going to be supported in 10 years?
I think there's a distinction to make there, though. I mean, the Linux kernel has been around, and maybe a good comparison there. The Linux kernel versus the C programming language, like they are still making improvements to Linux, right? And they're keeping up with new technology. Um, I couldn't tell you what those improvements are, but like they are still adding things to the Linux kernel in a way that like they're not really adding things to the C language, as far as I know.
You're right.
I think
Yeah.
there's supposedly like a new C standard coming at some point, but
Yeah, they update things, but it's more. I see what you mean. Like C is more like in like a maintenance mode,
yeah,
and Linux is still more like under active development. I would say.
it's not just bug fixes and security stuff. It's like, yeah, there's still people fighting over the direction of the Linux kernel. There's still very much an active community around it. They're still adding to it. I think that's a big differentiator when you and I are trying to decide like what goes into our technology stack. It's a good thing that there's the kind of this like healthy debate around the software still, and not just it is what it is. Like
Yeah.
those are the ones you kind of have to be a little wary about. It's like, do I want to build my product on top of this product that's kind of just not ever going to get any better than it is today?
So I wonder what like really makes a project like that. Like I think a big part of why C is the way it is because it's used a lot for embedded and like low level. Uh, it's used in things that aren't going to be changed for a long time and need to be supported for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the web, by its very nature, you can always change a website, and you can always deploy it to everybody, right? Like everyone can just refresh the thing and it works. So like there's never been like a C. I mean, I guess you could say like I guess JavaScript is like the C of the web, right? And like it is pretty ubiquitous in that this is kind of like what web pages use. But there's not like a web framework or any one web framework that is like, yeah, this is the way we do it, right? At least to me, it's always felt like the web is just this like like hamster wheel of just like here's the new thing, here's the new thing, here's the new thing.
I think HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then once you get past that, I think that
Right.
yeah, it's always just new frameworks and whatever's hot that day.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, I don't know. I just wonder what makes something get ubiquitous.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think you're right that it's much harder to do. Maybe it's just much harder to do in today's world. There's a lot more software coming out. There's a lot more people participating in software. Maybe it's just really hard for people to like come to a consensus around a piece of software for any length of time. I mean, I think one of the things that makes something ubiquitous in a weird kind of like self-referential way is that like it's ubiquitous, so it becomes ubiquitous. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone
that's huge.
everyone wrote a bunch of C code, so now we have to make sure that C is maintained forever because otherwise all this code will break, including like stuff that's flying around out in space.
Yeah. No, that's a huge part of it, and I think that's like kind of what's kind of frustrating sometimes, right? Is people will say, "Oh, well, we need to use this because this is like the way you do it," but what if we could do something else that maybe is better? Because that's the thing too, right? Like, okay, so JavaScript is how we write the web, and everybody kind of hates it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and then people try to make it better with like TypeScript and stuff, but it's like you said, it's this chicken or the egg. It's like JavaScript is what everything's written in, and or a lot of the time you see, some project will add JavaScript support, like uh, Unity added JavaScript support, and they did that. Their explanation was, well, because JavaScript is like the most known language. So then JavaScript continues to be the most known language because it's supported by everything because it's the most known language. And it's interesting because I wish something else was like the most known language, you know, and we could have something else that could be the most known language, and
Yeah.
that would be good.
I feel like even did you ever play around with Dart? Google had that language
I
Dart.
haven't used it, but yeah, I've heard about it.
They really, I thought for a moment, were trying to make that, an alternative native language in the browser, and they just like couldn't overcome that the the momentum that JavaScript had of being kind of the default language.
Well, people are still using Dart, right? Like people make Flutter apps.
Yeah, right. Flutter. That's the name I was trying to think of. But I think that when you write Dart these days, it compiles to JavaScript, right?
Oh, really? I haven't looked. Like, I don't know much about it.
I hope I'm right about that. But I didn't think you could run native Dart in the browser.
I mean, it's definitely not like Dart has not overtaken JavaScript. I think that's kind of the point you're making.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it compiles to JavaScript or WebAssembly. Oh, it can compile to machine code, JavaScript, or WebAssembly. So I imagine most people are compiling to JavaScript.
Yeah.
At least the people that are doing this, like in web stuff. I don't know. We don't know what we're talking about.
That's kind of cool, though. I didn't realize you could compile it down to native code, though. That's neat. Anyway, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting question. What makes something ubiquitous? It's just like, I think it has to reach some kind of critical threshold. And like I said, I think it's becoming harder and harder for something to reach that critical threshold. I think part of it's just the world of software is just so much bigger than it was when C became the thing, you know? There's just so much more going on and so many more competing options.
But you know what I think we've learned in recent years is that really to get something popular, you have to kind of like meme it into existence. Like the Rust language, a large part of why it is as well known as it is because for some reason everyone who writes it is like really annoying online about how great it is. Right? Like we've seen this, right? It seems like there was this evangelism around Rust where people were like, everybody needs to be writing this. We need to put like it felt very forced to me. Not like I mean forced in a natural internet way, and not forced like I don't think there was like I don't think the Illuminati like did this, but like a little bit forced like the community set like made Rust become what it is. And I think we saw that with like HTMX. Like I think the guy like do you follow the HTMX Twitter account?
Uh-uh.
The guy like I mean he's very in tune with like meme culture. And I think that's a big part of like why HTMX is something I've even heard of. And um it's interesting that that's how it is because I see a lot of languages that I like a lot or projects that I like a lot that are lesser known, and it seems like everyone who uses it likes it a lot, but they just don't have that. They don't have a community of like being really annoying, like being really aggressive with how good it is. So I feel like they're almost doomed in a way.
Do you think so? Memeing it into existence, is that different from people just being excited about the project, so excited that they want to share it?
Well, and maybe that's what it is. I mean, I don't know. I assume that's what I mean. I assume that's what most of the Rust people are doing, right? They like it a lot, so they like pushed it really hard. Um, but it's interesting that that's kind of what you have to do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is just if you're good enough. Like if the thing is good enough, that'll just happen. I don't know.
I mean, that it seems like there's a lot of similarities, whether it's whether it's a concerted marketing effort with like money behind it or not. I mean, it sounds like what you're describing is basically marketing, right? It has some kind of idea that people are able to, I don't know, to latch onto in some way beyond the specifics of the product or the software itself, right? It's not just that Rust is better, it's that it's better at these things, but also has people who are really pushing people to use it.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, that sounds like a marketing effort.
I mean, you need it to be pushed, right? Because what we're like, something like C++ has inertia, right? And you need to like, the laws of physics, how inertia works. We need an outside force to counteract that inertia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you need to like make something like that happen, right? If we were going to say if we were going to make a new browser or make a new browser standard or make a new JavaScript, like we can't just make a really good alternative thing. Like we're going to have to like make it big enough. And I think this is kind of like the core of what this episode is about, right? Is that it's not really a lot of like choosing your tech stack is not choosing the technology. It's choosing the culture and choosing the uh do you follow what's his name? I think it's Soding, Tsoding, Soding.
Uh-uh.
He has a YouTube channel and a Twitter account, and he's really funny. He's like very like uh he speaks his mind and like isn't afraid to piss people off with like his takes on programming and stuff. And he had a video I saw a while ago where he was saying that a lot of people view programming languages not as programming languages, but they view them as like a company stock, right? They view them as like, I'm going to buy this stock now while it's cheap, and then learn this language that's up and coming, and then as it gains popularity, I'll be in this point, like I'll have this investment that accrued value. And his take was that we should not do that. Everybody should just get good at programming and just focus on programming and whatever.
Like the
Which
fundamentals. You're talking about like data structures.
right, yeah. He was saying like, look, just get good at don't get good at like, don't become like a really good what's the hot thing, Zig, whatever it is. Like, don't just become like a really good Zig programmer because you think Zig is going to be a big deal in the future. Just become a really good programmer in anything, which I agree in principle. The thing is, when it comes to like getting jobs and hiring managers, you know, a lot of hiring managers are looking for people with 3 years of experience in Zig, and that's like how it is. And
right.
You kind of just had to know, like, have you ever seen that screenshot where like I think this is old as hell. I think this was I think it was React. Like it's just like on one side there's a posting for a job where they want 8 years of experience in React or whatever it was, and this is a long time ago. And then on the other side is the Wikipedia summary of React, and it's like created 6 years ago. It's like, uh, okay, but honestly, that happens, right? It's like I was supposed to know that Golang was going to become big. I was supposed to know that React was going to be the big one, right? And whoops, I learned Backbone, so here we are. And I mean, so when it comes to jobs, that doesn't apply. But the principle of it, I think I 100% agree with, right? Like, I wish we could just get really good at the principles.
Right. I think that would make a lot of us better programmers if we kind of learned like this is the way this language I'm strong in my fundamentals and this is the way that this language kind of implements that.
Right. Because I would think that a good C programmer would be able to hop into a Zig project and like do pretty good.
I mean, that's been my experience. The people I know that are really strong in their fundamentals can really, I think the ability to pick up a new language is just much faster. You can just like hop over and it really is a case of like, oh yeah, I see that this language is like, this is like this thing that I already know. And so I can kind of translate. When you're talking about paying dividends though, when you're talking about looking at an investment in technology, is that just about jobs or is there other stuff there?
Well, I was just thinking about jobs, but I mean, is there somewhere you're going with that?
I was just kind of, I guess I wasn't thinking about jobs. I was kind of wondering, I don't know, say you're already at a job and you pick a, like kind of a new technology. Is there some advantage to being like in on the ground floor with the new technology? Maybe you get to guide it a little bit, maybe you get to, your input is a little more important if you're like one of the early adopters and one of the early members of the community.
I mean, I've never been in that position, but I mean, I kind of wonder. I mean, I think about really both of the interviews we've done on this channel, right? I think about Corey House talking about how he was kind of just early to React, and just luckily was, and that's like what his career pretty much is like teaching people React, and his channel is all about React. So I feel like that worked out really well for him.
Let me run something by you. I have maybe a different framework to look at things through. This is like maybe a different lens to look at how to pick software in your stack. And I want to see what you think about this. It really has to do with what technology is kind of core to what you're doing, and how much time are you willing to spend on each piece of technology. So that's how I kind of think about it, is when you pick an exciting new hype piece of software, I think you're committing to spending more time on that, more time on bugs, on weird undocumented stuff, because the documentation is like half complete and nobody's ever really used that feature before, and that API method was supposed to be private, and like there's all kinds of stuff that you're going to run into like that. But I think that stuff can be worth it if that piece of technology that software is doing, if that's like core to your business, that can really be worth it to like spend a lot of time on one piece of software. Whereas like if you're running a software as a service, like you don't want to be debugging bugs in like your HTTP library or whatever, right? Just pick something boring, pick something stable, something that's not going to take a lot of your time, so that you can focus your time on this other thing that's more core to your business.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like for instance, if your business is like you make a video game engine and you're the first to adopt this new open source like graphics library that's way faster than everybody else, that's gonna be valuable to you.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about, where like you're making a big investment by using the exciting technology. The big thing that worries me when I'm looking at something that's brand new is if it's still under like active development to the point that there's like breaking changes consistently.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm gonna have to rewrite things that I already made that already worked, and then they update the upstream stuff, and I gotta like rewrite stuff. That's like I would say any production software, I'm not using something that's not like officially released yet.
Yep.
Right.
100%. I think that,
which even, I mean, is Zig hasn't been officially released, has it? Isn't it still technically in alpha?
It's not at 1.0. Yeah, it's so I guess that means it probably hasn't been officially released.
But like people are using this, people are building real stuff.
I agree, though. I think without some kind of commitment from the developer that the API is stable and we're not going to be making those kind of like breaking changes, I'd be really hesitant to use something in production if I was relying on it to be up all the time. For a hobby project, it's kind of whatever. Like that's your chance to explore and have fun.
So it looks like Zig, I mean, according to Wikipedia, it is considered a stable release. Like even though it's a leading 0.14, I don't know, is like a stable release.
We're just talking about semantic versioning and all that, and like means different things to different people.
Yeah, I think it just means they haven't made any breaking changes.
I forget. Odin uses like some other versioning scheme entirely. I can't remember. Yeah, I have.
It's on version. Oh yeah, it does the dev date thing.
Yeah, I kind of like the date versioning. Honestly,
it's. I mean, yeah, it's very clear about what that is, what that means. Sweet, but I know Odin is one where I think it is considered still pre-release. Yeah, it's dev, right? Dev means it's pre-release, and the maintainer Ginger Bill, I've heard, is very like he's very like cautious about people using Odin, and he very much tries to like manage expectations. Like just from what I've heard about like how he is in the Odin Discord and stuff. He's very like, yeah, don't expect any of this to work, right? He doesn't want like he's very much like that because he just doesn't want anyone to like get the wrong idea about what this is, and he wants to be very proud of it before it's like officially like, yeah, this works, use this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would want to use Odin in like my software that I'm trying to build a company on.
I think that's another piece of, what we were talking about with evangelists and stuff like that for a piece of software is like, if you're going to go out there and stand for this software, it better be like pretty good. It better be working.
Yeah.
I think that, Rust, that in addition to people pushing hard for people to use it, I think that, from the jump, at least from the time I heard about it, it had like a lot of the stuff that we associate with Rust was already there. The good error messages and the, I think the compiler was or is still slow and all that. But like, for the most part, I think it had a lot of features that really sold it over C or C++.
Yeah, and it just keeps growing and growing and being introduced into more projects to the point that now it's almost like, okay, do I have to learn this now? Is this like the new old software that I'm supposed to just know?
I've been really getting that feeling lately. I mean, I borrowed a couple of Rust books from you, but yeah, I've really been getting that vibe lately that like, you're going to want to know some Rust. It's going to be kind of expected that you know some Rust in the same way that I feel like it's expected that you know a little C.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is like developer advocacy is a thing. You ever see those job postings for developer advocates?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always kind of wonder like, what's going on there? Like, so I mean, I guess it makes sense, but like Google will like hire someone to try to like convince the dev community to use a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of a weird idea, don't you think?
I think it's necessary if the community is big enough. I think you have to have someone who's going between, I've heard this term that I hadn't thought about a lot before, developer experience. Just like a user experience, like developer experience is very much a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
What does it feel like to use the environment around this? Not just Rust, but also Cargo and Rust Up and like all the things that are associated with it. I think it totally makes sense to have someone whose job it is to make sure that experience is good.
Well, is that what it is? Because when I think of developer advocates, I think of people who like go to talks and like are basically giving a sales pitch on this thing.
But don't they also pass back like concerns from people at the talks? If someone's like,
probably,
yeah, the compiler's too slow, like they'll go back to the dev team. They act like a liaison between the developers at the company and developers who are using the software.
Yeah, and that's necessary. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's a really good idea, and I think that companies who don't do that, at least if they're trying to grow their software and their ecosystem, I think they kind of like don't have someone in that position at their peril. Do you think that'd be a fun job?
I think it would be, actually. I mean, as a podcast host who likes talking about software, I think that would be cool. Yeah. There are days where sometimes I think like the daily grind of Jira tickets. Sometimes I think like it would be cool to be like, I'm just going to give a presentation and talk to people. The only thing that scares me is I feel like, and maybe I'm assuming, I don't know anyone who is a developer advocate. I don't really know what it's like, but I wonder, like, is it like being a salesperson? Are you like if you're a developer advocate for Dart, you can't really say anything bad about Google, right?
Right.
you kind of gotta like, and when people ask you like, hey, React Native does this and Flutter doesn't do this, are you expected to kind of damage control that? I mean, obviously you're not going to lie to anyone, but like, I don't know. I just wonder. What I love about this podcast is we come on here and we just say like, yeah, we think this is stupid. We love this, or we really had a good experience with this, and we don't have any biases. I mean, we have biases, but not like we don't have any like financial ties to anything.
Right. Yeah, I think there certainly is a sales aspect to that job. I would assume. Yeah, you're right. You can't be bad mouthing the software that you're supposed to be like evangelizing and selling to people. I mean, hopefully you believe in the thing you're selling, but
That's the thing. I don't think I could do it if I didn't believe in the thing. Because like that's the thing. Like this is something I think we've kind of danced around a little bit in this episode so far. Is like there are things that become popular that maybe shouldn't be, right? Like I can't think of any good examples, but like you hear stories about these things, like what's the thing? Betamax, was that the thing that was like better than VHS?
oh yeah,
But like it didn't take off for some. I don't really know the story, but like you hear about things like that, right? Where it's like this thing was really better, but this other thing kind of got pushed more.
yeah,
And that's the thing. That's what I was thinking about in the Matt Watson episode. He was saying you don't have to be like the best at anything. You just have to be the most well known, right? He was saying like your plumber, the plumber that you Google and find and call to come fix your plumbing isn't necessarily the best plumber. Probably pretty good, but he's the best known plumber, right? The one that has like the best SEO and has the best Google reviews and has like, he's the guy that you know about.
right. So do you think there's software out there, yeah, that it's hyped entirely or mostly by marketing effort and not by the superiority of the technology?
So I don't know if it's just marketing, but I feel like there's probably stuff that like, yeah, there's better technical solutions for. And I think part of it would be like we were talking about like the inertia effect, right? Of it's in use a lot at this big company, so it kind of is in use everywhere else, or some somebody who's like a big name uses it and says it's really good, so it became or it's supported by this platform, but this other platform didn't support it, so it became ubiquitous.
That's a big one, yeah. It's the only thing that runs on Solaris or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like what, for a long time, like Microsoft Windows was like the platform to target games on because Windows was the thing that supported all the other games. Mm-hmm. So if you were a game developer, you targeted Windows and you ignored Mac because it already didn't support anything, which then feeds into the already existing fact that Windows supports more games because you support it. But yeah. You know what I mean? So it just continues.
It's like a feedback cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, one of the things that I think happens in these conversations when when a technology gets hyped, I think we lose a little bit of the nuance of that certain technologies are better or worse for specific use cases, right? Yeah. And it just becomes like React good. We got to use React because it's a new thing. And like whether that comes from Facebook really pushing it or whether it comes from genuine developer excitement, evangelism, I just think that sometimes we get caught in this thing of like React is the good thing. That's what I use. And it's like, okay, I mean, the right thing to do is like to evaluate it for your specific case and decide, is React a good fit here? Might be, might not be, might be way more than you need,
Well, and what's weird is I pretty rarely hear, when it comes to the web framework stuff, I pretty rarely hear people talking about like really specific things that they like about one versus another. Or at least if they do, I don't really understand it usually. But like, yeah, I don't really hear like, oh, React is way better than Vue because it does this specific, or A, B, and C in a better way. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time it's kind of vague, like, oh, I like the syntax makes sense to me, or like the developer experience is good. And I hear more and more people saying that, right? Like, well, Vue and Svelte and React are all really good. It's kind of a personal preference. But the thing about that is, I don't really have time to like build an app in all three of those and see for myself. So
Right.
I kind of do just use the popular one a lot of the time.
I think that's a totally valid choice. Picking the popular one because there's more examples online, because it's easier to get help, because the community's bigger. I mean, I think those are all really valid reasons for, like, in the absence of any other factors, those are all really good reasons for picking a framework, I think.
Yep. I kind of want to jump back to that idea of, you mentioned like balancing the mature stuff with the exciting stuff. Like how do you go about that?
It's pretty rare that I get to do it in at work, I'll say that. So I'm generally not picking things like, in terms of a web server that needs to be running all the time, I'm generally not picking any new technologies. Our stack at work is pretty kind of is what it is. I don't think we're making any big changes there. So I think that most of that stuff then comes down to hobby projects that I'm working on. And in that case, I often pick things based, I often pick exciting stuff on purpose because I want to learn something new, you
Yeah.
know? I think
So
that's, yeah, that's the thing for me, is that oftentimes if I'm doing a hobby project, I'm picking a technology that is very different from something I've learned before. And I want to do something different, and I'm not afraid to, like, I guess for me personally, it doesn't need to be new. It just needs to be different from what I've
interesting.
done.
Yeah. Right. Um, that's interesting because, well, I mean, I found lately, like when I was younger, I was a bit more into like, oh, I want to make like this SaaS platform that makes me rich, right? I used to think about that with a lot of my hobby projects,
Hmm.
and I think that's a big part of like why I didn't stick with any of them for very long. And in recent years, I've been focusing more on like, I'm just going to work on what I think is interesting and just do what I think is fun. And so in that regard, pretty much every project I do is in something different, you know. And uh, yeah, I mean, if I were to, if someone were to come to me and be like, hey, we have this really, we have this thing we really want to build, and we're going to pay you a bunch of money to build it and make it good. Like, yeah, I would pick something I know better and something that's more mature. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Like, what is this thing you're building, and what are the requirements for it? Um, there's
Yeah.
been some talk lately in the news about how a lot of government stuff is written in Fortran and other such very old archaic technologies because they built it and it worked and everyone just left it alone.
Yep. And simultaneously transitioning to Rust, maybe. I think that was like last year,
Oh yeah.
maybe. There was that document out of the White House that was like, I don't know if they mentioned Rust specifically, but it was like, we're gonna start transitioning to memory safe languages and stuff like that.
I believe they did mention a few languages by name. Uh, I don't remember if it was they mentioned which ones they are memory safe that they do want to use, or if it was ones that are unsafe that they don't want to use.
The ones that they're
But
deprecating.
I remember, but yeah, the Rust community definitely was like, they were showboating a little bit when that came out.
Flex. Yeah. Yeah. One of the ones I'm thinking about here for hobby projects that I've been working on recently is OpenGL. So in
Yeah,
terms of like graphics frameworks, OpenGL is kind of a dinosaur. It's like, I don't think it's had an update since 2016. There are newer, better graphics frameworks. Um, but
like Vulkan. Vulkan's like the big one, right?
there's Vulkan, yeah, and then there's WebGL or is it? No, WebGPU is the new one that's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
supposed to be kind of the wrapper, because it kind of sucked. Not to go on too much of a tangent here, but like, it kind of sucks. OpenGL worked on all the platforms, and then we got into this period of like, well, Apple went with Metal and Windows went with DirectX, and then and then Linux went with Vulkan, and we kind of had this like fragmentation again. And I think the hope is that WebGPU is going to bring those back together.
Did you know? You said not to get onto a tangent, but tangents is like what I do over here.
Let's do it.
The, um, and I'm trying to verify this real quick before I spread misinformation online. But I remember reading somewhere that yeah, here it is. Yeah. It's called the Xbox because of DirectX.
Oh, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
so it's like the DirectX box. The Xbox was codenamed Direct Xbox, but this was shortened to Xbox for its commercial name. Which is crazy because I always wondered, like, does that just sound cool? It doesn't really sound that cool. Maybe it did in 2002. It probably did in 2002, but like, yeah,
Direct
it's the direct.
Xbox is a pretty good name, though. I think that's kind of dope. The
I
Direct
don't know if
Xbox.
you don't know about DirectX, then you're like, wait, what? What'd you say? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Direct Xbox? What? That's
that
too much.
it's a lot of syllables for a gaming
But also,
system.
it's funny because I mean, the Microsoft with the Xbox has been notoriously bad at naming all the sequels. Right?
Oh,
It was
what
the
are the sequels?
360. So the Xbox 360, and then I think after that was the Xbox One, and then the newest one is the Xbox Series X, which sounds like like a version of the previous one, but and also Xbox One. You know, before the Xbox One came out, you would say Xbox One meaning the original Xbox.
Right, first gen.
Yeah, yeah. So, so it became yeah. There's another story. So this one,
Terrible.
I don't think this was ever actually confirmed or not, but a rumor I read online was that uh, so the Xbox came out the same generation as the PlayStation 2, and so when the new Xbox was coming out, people thought it would be like the Xbox 2, but they didn't want it to be the Xbox 2 in the PlayStation 3 because 3 sounds like it's newer than 2.
Oh yeah.
So they called it the Xbox 360. So it's like there's the PlayStation 3, and then there's the Xbox 360, which like sounds better.
Yeah.
I've heard a similar thing. I think with like iPhone, like they skipped iPhone 9,
Oh,
right? It went iPhone 8 to iPhone X, which was iPhone 10. I think they called it 10, but it was written with an X. But I think the reason they did that was because Samsung at the same time had the Samsung 10 coming out,
oh.
the Galaxy S10 or something like that. I don't know.
Wasn't there something with the 3G iPhone too, where it was like we had our cellular technology 3G, and then Apple released an iPhone 3G, and it was like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like
yeah,
there
yeah.
was
I remember that. Yeah,
that's a long time
but
ago, but
it wasn't 3G the cell technology. It was just the iPhone 3G, right?
right. And if
Yeah,
I'm remembering right, the iPhone 3G did not support 3G.
yeah. That was the thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're aging ourselves with that one, but yeah,
God, that feels like a long time
it was.
ago.
Um, we should change the name of our podcast to the the one Direct X developer podcast.
Hey, directees.
Directees.
I don't know. We'll work on it. We'll workshop it.
You know, what were we talking about before Xbox?
OpenGL and
Oh,
DirectX
yeah.
and all that.
Well, so and I know that's a thing. I mean, like I've seen a lot of threads of people saying like, "Do I learn OpenGL or do I learn Vulkan?" Because Vulkan is, and it's a similar thing where Vulkan is like, well, it's a little bit lesser known. You're gonna have to do a little bit more legwork because there's a little bit less resources, and whereas OpenGL, it's like there's a lot of books and stuff.
Yeah.
So
And
same
the
thing.
the thing is, I've been learning OpenGL because of that exact reason. There's tons and tons of really good resources because it was around for so long, and it was like the only game in town basically for a while. And then, but also it still runs on all the platforms. Apple's a
Yeah,
little dicey, I think, but you can still run OpenGL stuff on pretty much every platform. I'm still running it
right.
on my Mac.
Yeah,
Not exciting, but probably still worth learning.
yeah, for sure. Well, and you also run into this where like a lot of Rust tutorials they'll reference like C++ things or C concepts, right? They'll say, "Oh, this is just like when you do this in C++," because those are the previous ubiquitous things that Rust is like trying to replace.
Yeah.
But if you're new to the whole thing, you're kind of like, "Well, I don't even know what that means," right? So that's a situation where I imagine it's similar with like Vulkan resources, right? They probably compare it a lot to OpenGL a lot because they probably just assume that people learning Vulkan already know that.
Yep.
So yeah, just go in order. Start with the Greeks. Read Aristotle, read Socrates, then just go from there.
Then you're ready to learn COBOL.
Yeah.
I find that really puzzling sometimes when I read those tutorials. Yeah, Rust was one, but I think C++ might be the worst one, where it's just like, it's not even that you need to know a different language. In order to learn like a lot of the modern C++ features, you kind of have to know how they used to do it. And I think that makes it
Really?
incredibly hard to learn. It's like, why do we have this crazy verbose syntax for this? And it's like, oh, well, it's because before, in the previous version of C++, it's almost like you need to learn the history of C++ in order to learn modern C++. It's kind of annoying.
I haven't really done any C++ programming, so I haven't seen that. But I feel like I guess it's kind of similar with like there's some like TypeScript stuff that's a little bit like that. That there's things you'll see that are like, why are they doing this? It's like or like I imagine because TypeScript is a really loved language that's celebrated a lot and talked about a lot online. I imagine there's a lot of people who try to learn it now that are like they don't know JavaScript and they're kind of like, it's almost like they're learning two things at once.
Right. Yeah. Wouldn't that be kind of bizarre if that was like, if you sat down just to learn programming for the very first time and you're just like picked a language from the popular languages list and you're like, I'll start with TypeScript, and just didn't know anything about what it meant for that it like compiles down to JavaScript or anything like that.
Yeah.
That'd be really weird.
I mean, I think TypeScript mostly exists as its own thing, but I don't know. I wonder what that would be like.
Can you debug it in the browser though? Don't you still see JavaScript? Like if you go into into the developer tools?
Yeah, I think you do, because it's really the like some people say that TypeScript is like not a language. This is a big thing that Parameter talks about. He says it's like not a language. It's just like basically just like a really fancy like linter built on top of JavaScript. You know what I mean? Like because it's basically just type checking your JavaScript. So I think that happens as part of the compilation. So then I think in your browser it's just the JavaScript. Well, I guess if you do have a TypeScript error, it'll like if you have a typing error, like the compilation will fail, right? But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, like the JavaScript, it'll be the compiled JavaScript that would show in your browser, I think.
I just think that would be a strange experience. It's like I wrote one thing, but when I go to DevTools, it's something else. Like how does that work?
I mean, that's already a weird thing. Like I remember that confusing me the first time I was like trying to debug something that was in production mode, and I was like, "That's not my variable name. That's just the letter W."
What'd you do to my code, and why does this code even run?
Like, what? But that's weird.
All right, maybe last thing on this topic, I just want to send a love letter out to Sublime Text. The most boring and yet most fantastic piece of software. It hasn't. I get like an update every 6 months. Everything always works exactly as it's supposed to. I love you, Sublime.
I don't know if I have something like that. If I have like a old boring software that's been working, I'm sure I do. I probably use something like that every day, and I just don't know it. There's probably something deep in the Linux like ecosystem that's like, if it disappeared tomorrow, like nothing would work, and I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah, not making a lot of improvements to LS these days.
Yeah. But another thing I find interesting sometimes, this is almost a separate topic, but like it seems like nowadays developers are like a lot more comfortable just pushing things that are like half done or like are maybe even broken, because it used to be you finished your software and then you put it on a disk, right? And then you sold that disc, and you never updated that shit. That was the finished thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've entered a world where like software is never finished, right? We could just patch everything. You know, every game comes out, there's a day one patch that's huge that fixes everything that broke, and it's like, I mean, that's great, right? It's great that we can fix things afterwards, but I don't know. I feel like maybe we need to say like it's done in order for people to like, you know, have it done at some point.
What do you mean by people have it done? Are you talking about people deciding to use the software for something that they like
No,
really rely on?
I mean the developers, right? Like, because a big thing, and this is mostly in video games, I guess. Now I think about it, but I see a lot of people say like, you know, okay, you used to go and like buy Ocarina of Time, and like on a it was a cartridge, and that was the whole software, right? There was no fixing it, there was no changes to it. That was it, and there's bugs in that game, but like they're known, like they're pretty few and far between. And then games come out now and they're complete broken messes that are like there's bugs all over the place. And I think part of that is just because the developers know, well, we can just fix it later, and they just continue to just make updates over time. And we've transitioned into this like this thing where software just lives forever and it's never done.
Like the life of Pablo. It just keeps evolving even after it's released.
Yeah. Like the ship of Theseus. Like, is it even the same ship? Is it even the same game?
Right. Is this even the
I mean,
same game?
literally, like, I mean, those games that are updated all the time. Like, I mean, I don't play Fortnite, but like, the Fortnite of today is like a completely different game than like what it was when it first came out.
Really?
Yeah, it's a completely different thing.
I mean, it's been around for 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at one point they completely removed the building mechanic, so it was just like a regular shooter, and I think it's back now.
I thought that was the whole thing in Fortnite. I thought you were building stuff.
Maybe that was just one game mode, but I know that at one point there was like there was just no building. It was just you just shoot stuff.
Oh. Huh. Yeah, that seems like a totally different audience.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Do you want to get into whose side you want?
Let's do it.
First of all, do you use Obsidian?
Yeah, I sure do.
I want to ask, okay, so whose side do you want? Is the Obsidian graph view useful or dumb? And do you even know what it is, or have you ever used it?
I use it constantly. I think it's extremely useful. Are there
Really?
people who think it's dumb? Do you think it's dumb?
I don't think it's dumb, but I don't think I get it. I don't think I get. Oh, and okay, maybe it's just all my notes are pretty much just self-contained notes. Like I have one note that's podcast ideas, and it's just a list, and then I have another note that's for the browser episode. It's just like a list of the browsers and my notes on each one, and they're not really interconnected. Like my graph view is so boring. It's just dots.
No. Okay. So you have dots with no lines between the dots.
I have no lines between my dots at all.
Yeah. So we should probably describe for anyone who doesn't use Obsidian, who's not familiar with this. The graph mode is basically you have a circle for every note in your Obsidian vault, and then you have, if notes are able to reference other notes, just like Wikipedia or whatever, and when a note references another note, it draws a line between.
So I have the feeling that I just don't use Obsidian to the extent that like I should be.
I'm trying to see if I can share my Obsidian vault without like sharing personal information here.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Like I don't want to share all my notes, but I don't know. I feel like I hear people talk about how much time they spend like customizing an Obsidian and like their graph view. They share their graph views, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are doing a lot more here than me. I'm not doing all that.
You're not doing it because you don't want to? You don't think it's helpful?
Well, I didn't even know the graph view existed until like recently.
Let me see if I can share my graph view. Hold on.
I just don't know. Well, I mean, why would I want my note? Like, okay, why do I want my podcast ideas list to reference my browser's list? Dude, what is dude? See that I'm like not operating at the level you are.
No, I mean, there's nothing crazy going on here. So each of these dots is a note. The big green dots are tags. So those are like, big main ideas. I'll have one.
Tags?
Yeah. I,
See, you tag your notes?
yep. So I have one big tag. Probably that big guy in the middle is just one that's called reading list. And that's
How do you
just
even
like
do that? How do you add a tag?
hash tag or hash, whatever. Just like a hashtag.
It in the title?
No, not in the title. Anywhere in the body.
But doesn't hash like make a header like a
Um,
markdown?
I think I think you have to have spaces after your hashes for the markdown. So like 3 hashes space something will be big text. But if you just do hash, I don't know.
So if I just do hash. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
It should turn purple.
Yeah. Okay. See, I don't do stuff like that. I just write stuff.
How many notes are we talking about? How big is your Obsidian bowl?
5, 6, 7. I have 11 notes.
Okay. Well, you probably don't need GraphView for 11 notes.
Well, what are you guys taking notes on? Like, what are you doing?
I take notes. I mean, I have a note for every project I'm working on. If I read a book, I put a note in there, and like the book notes reference any other notes I have about ideas in that book and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I mean, so a lot of these are just okay. So a big one for me lately, I've talked about before on the podcast. I'm trying to learn like some graphics programming. So there's like all kinds of ideas that are in there, right? There's shaders, OpenGL, Vulkan, all the stuff we talked about. I have notes that are like that topic. There'll be like a Vulkan note, and then any notes that I come across that are related to Vulkan, I can like reference that.
So I will like I'll just make like one note for a topic, and then just like add to that anything that's related to that topic, like in that note.
I like to break it up into smaller notes for the most part.
But also, none of mine are that long.
Are you not
Okay, so here's something. Okay, so like in my podcast ideas note, I have just an unordered list of ideas, and then at the bottom, I have I have like a break, and then I have just just in like a paragraph, comma delimited ideas for whose side you want. So I just scroll to the bottom when I get to whose side you want. So I could make that its own note, and then they could each have their own podcast tag,
Sure.
and then I'll be a super productivity genius obsidian user.
I mean, when we look at this and we kind of talk about it, it kind of seems like this is a whole waste of time. Like why am I even doing this? But I'll tell you, the graph view is really helpful when I'm looking for like what do I want to work on next? Okay, so 2 things. One, if I'm into a topic and I want to find all the notes related to it, right? I can, I have this article from 2 years ago and I have this one that I just bookmarked the other day. They're all kind of like related somehow. Either they reference each other or they have the same tag or whatever. So I can kind of gather those up while my head's into a topic. But the other thing is just sometimes I'll just look at the graph view and like look for an interesting note. What is I don't know what's something in my reading list, that an article that I need to read that I haven't read yet.
So you do a reading list in a, is that like, do you have a separate note for each link that you just drop in there?
Yes. So if I come across something on Hacker News that I think would be interesting and I don't have time to read it right then, I make a note in Obsidian and I tag it reading list. And I think that's that big green dot in the middle with all of the stuff. I think those are all just my unread articles.
I just open it in a new tab, and if I don't get around to reading it, I'll just close the tab eventually.
like to keep them around. I don't know. I feel like there's no reason to lose them, right? You never know when something's going to come in handy or when you might be interested in reading it.
Yeah. I think we were talking about this earlier. Yeah, Vivaldi also has a reading list feature.
See, that's the thing. I've often wondered if there's a better tool than Obsidian for that.
I've never used it, but yeah, you just add links to your reading list, and it's just a separate window or bar. It's a separate.
Have you been using that? Do you like it?
No, I've never used this,
Hmm.
but it's there. I feel like that kind of makes more sense than making a note.
I agree that a reading list makes more sense. I don't think I like it integrated with the browser. I
Okay,
do
yeah.
like that Obsidian is separate and is offline. It's just my personal.
Why do you need an offline list of all content?
Well, okay. So when I read an article in my reading list, then I take it off the reading list because I've read it. But then I take notes on the article. I
Oh,
put
okay. Okay, actually, yeah, that makes sense.
if the article was relevant at all. If I read it and I'm just like that was trash, I'll just delete the note.
You
But
just delete them. Yeah.
if it had some interesting ideas, I'll put some notes about the article I read, and I'll probably reference some other notes in my vault. Yeah,
So I think I actually do just I'm just not an advanced note taker. I'm a amateur low level beginner note taker.
I agree that graph mode doesn't make any sense if you don't have a ton of notes in there, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
So I've gone through phases in my life. Like I used to have like lists of just like notepad, just text file lists of like all kinds of things. Like I used to have just this very long list of movies I wanted to watch,
Hmm.
uh, and I eventually just deleted it because it would grow by like 5 movies a day, and I would watch one like 2 movies a week. So it
Okay.
was just like I'm not going to watch all these. So I just deleted the list, and my life got better, like significantly better after that. And I I feel like a lot for a lot of people, tools like Obsidian tap into that, right? This like I need to organize all this stuff that is really causing you more anxiety than anything. I'm not saying you do that, but I think I see people do that.
I do that a little bit, yeah. um, but why was your movie list causing you anxiety? Like, what's the root
Well,
there?
just because I would look at the list, and okay, so I would say I want to watch a movie. I would go through my list, and I would feel just even worse. What's it called? Decision paralysis than if I was just trying to come up with a movie to watch.
Oh, I see.
And then I was also felt overwhelmed by the fact that this list will never be concluded. But I do a lot of really dumb things now I think about it. Now I do kind of keep a list of books I want to read. Every time I see a book I want to read, I add it to my Amazon wish list. And it's the same thing. My Amazon wish list is huge. And like I've got books on there. And every now and again I'll go through it and I'll be like, this book doesn't even look good. And I also I still I never really got away from the movie thing completely. What I do now is I open the IMDb app on my phone and IMDb will record like your recent searches. So in my recent searches, I'll kind of use that as a list, but I don't like log in and keep an actual list. It's a little bit more ephemeral than that, which makes me feel better about it. But I do have like a little bit of a list. I've got 8.5. I've got The Sea Inside, Casino. These are all movies I haven't seen that I think I should see.
Oh, dude, you got to watch Bad God.
I wanted to watch that last night, and my wife didn't want to watch it.
Watch it without her. It's
'Cause it's
fantastic.
short too, right?
I think it is pretty short. Yeah,
Maybe says it's an hour and 23 minutes.
I think it took the guy like 30 years to make or whatever.
Because that's the thing. I also, whenever you have a list of like movies or books, you always reach a point where everything left is like stuff that obviously you want to watch it. That's why it's on the list. But you end up with like a bunch of Citizen Kane ass movies. You know what I mean? And like, they're great. Like I know 8.5 is a good movie. It's like lots of lists say it's the greatest film ever, but it's just I didn't really want to watch it last night. You know,
So you got a bunch of stuff on your list that you feel like you should watch, but you don't really want to.
I kind of got to make myself watch. Mad God is one that actually looks fun. I don't know why 12 Monkeys is on here. I think I've probably seen that before, but that probably is fun. But yeah, mostly I've got 8.5 days. I've got like Terrence Malick movies and Michael Haneke movies. Uh, Come and See, which everyone says is like it's one of those movies that's just like not a fun watch. It's like about like war and it's like really sad and stuff. Requiem for a Dream. That's probably my biggest one. That's like, dude, you've never seen that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's a little crazy. I've never seen that.
Do you like Aronofsky in general?
Not really.
Oh,
because what else has he made?
maybe it's good.
I mean, I saw Mother, and I did not like that movie. That was like one of his newer ones.
Yeah, I really haven't.
I didn't watch The Whale. Oh, I like Black Swan. I like The Wrestler. So I don't know, but that's another one that's like Requiem for a Dream is like it's not a fun movie, right?
Right.
So it's like I can't. Yeah. See, most of these are they're either like that or they're like black and white from like the 50s. Which nothing wrong with that. You just you got to be in the mood.
Yeah. I counterpoint to your idea that the movie list is giving you anxiety because it's never complete. I like putting things on my list. I think what gives me anxiety more is the idea that something's going to escape. If I throw it in my Obsidian, at least it's like searchable. I could find it. I'll probably never read most of the articles on my reading list, but like, that's okay. I would rather just throw them in there and have them if I'm looking for something interesting to read someday. Then the idea is that the idea of just like closing the tab and then I'm like, what was that cool thing that I saw, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why I have this, right? Like there's movies that I hate when it's like there was something I thought about the other day that I wouldn't watch, and then I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
I hate that. But I don't know. I feel like I don't ever want like my interest to become like a job. I feel like having a list can sometimes make it like that.
absolutely. You can kind of like strangle the fun out of something by trying to control it too much. I think sometimes what you're talking about with people getting too wild with Obsidian is like, to me, it feels like, not to like psychoanalyze people from afar, but it feels like people trying to really, really control the experience as much as they can. Like, I got to collect all this information about it. And I'm guilty of that too a lot. I definitely have been down in that mode before.
Well, and that's what I think about with like I don't have a Letterboxd account because I know I would be way too into it.
Yeah.
And I would end up like, oh, I got to get through my watch list. Oh, I got to review every movie I ever saw. My reviews aren't consistent. I need to go back and revise them so that I can't put this one above it. Like that would drive me nuts. And so it's like, no, movies are something I like doing. I'm gonna just put the movie on and watch.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
I think that's good. I think it's good to, yeah. I think we have a habit in society these days of, I don't know, treating everything like it needs to be like that. And like our hobbies don't always need to be documented and analyzed, right? Sometimes it's just watch a movie and enjoy it.
Yeah. I think the hobbies that I stick with the longest and enjoy the most are the ones that I try to not overthink and I just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I think that's why like well, okay, I haven't ridden bikes in a long time, but I was really into riding bikes for a while, and I think a big part of it was because I didn't. People would ask me like what like my times were, how far I would go. It's like I don't know. I just go on the trail and I just ride.
Hmm.
That's all I do, And like I do have that list of books on my Amazon wish list, but I don't like. I'm not tuned into like book talk. I don't like listen to book podcast. I don't like try to read things that you have to read this before you die. Like I go on my wish list and I'm like, hey, that looks interesting. I'm going to read that now, and I read it.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's what hobbies are for, man. They're for enjoying things in your downtime.
But this all goes back. It all comes full circle, dude. Because that's what I was saying earlier. Like I feel like I've reached that point now with programming. I'm not like, oh, I need to learn React. Oh, I need to learn Nuxt. I need to learn. It's like, hey, Odin sounds cool. I'm gonna do some Odin programming. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
and that's more how I do it now.
Yeah, there's no anxiety about having to like. Do you think that comes with just I don't know, age, maturity? Like, you think you're maybe aged out of like the hype cycle? You're not going to be interviewing for every job that's like with the next hype technology or whatever.
But yeah, that's part of it. I don't worry about jobs so much when I'm trying to do stuff. But I think a lot of it is just influences. Like I was saying, like I saw that clip of Soding talking about that, and I saw that the Primeagen will talk about that too. He'll mention like, hey, just learn stuff. Try to just learn stuff that you think is fun, and that's what Corey House said in the interview with him. So I've been trying to take some of that stuff to heart. Like, hey man, why do you do this? Like, do you do this because you want to become the next like React guy? You want to, like, I don't know. Like, I just want to make stuff, and I just want to make the stuff that I want to make because I spend all day making stuff for other people at work. So, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's exciting. I don't know. It's exciting you got to that place with programming. That's a fun place to be.
I'm not all the way there either. Like, I do think, like, I will think, like, oh, this is a big thing. I want to look into that because there's a lot of interest in it. But, I don't know. Every now and again, I will wonder, like, should I spend 6 months just really crushing leak code so I can work at, like, a bigger company and make more money? Every now and again, I just think about it. But I don't know.
I don't know, man. I think having fun with it sounds more fun.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Oh. All right, this is getting long.
All right. That was good. That was fun.
Yeah.
Graph mode forever. Do not ever not use graph mode.
Oh, yeah. See you guys.
1X Developer Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Colin. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the 1X Developer Podcast, and let you know that if you have any questions, comments, or if you just want to tell us about your day, you can reach us at X, formerly known as Twitter, at 1X Developer Podcast. We're also on YouTube at 1X Developer Podcast. You can email us if you're weird at 1xdeveloperpodcast at protonmail.com. And lastly, don't forget to follow, subscribe, all that stuff, so you don't miss any further episodes of the 1X Developer Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.